Alright, after the cold ice lady from Xianzhou, it's time for some hot stuff. In the last video we discussed Jingliu's kit and how she works, and it wasn't that complicated or new, cause like for the past two updates we are getting decision characters like Blade and then Imbibe Lene, but now after so much time we're finally getting a hunt character. It's pretty funny that the last hunt character we got was Zila, who was literally the first limited character of Star Rail, and the second one, Topaz, is coming with Zila rerun. Hunt characters have always been powerhouses. They are literally the glass cannons of this game. They're fast characters that can dish out crazy numbers. And this time we're going to be looking at our newest hunt character, Topaz, a character with crazy hot design and really big traits, holy, and also the pig, Numby. So in this video we'll be looking at her kit, her Eidolons, talk about some builds and team synergies. And as usual, these are just my personal thoughts on the character. If you disagree or find some mistakes, feel free to correct me in the comments. I respect everyone's opinion. With that out of the way, I'm Sho, and this is my pre-release analysis on Topaz and Numby. So Topaz is going to be our newest hunt character. She's a fire damage dealer with a pretty high speed at 110. Still not as fast as Zila or Tingyun though. Also, very uniquely, despite being a hunt character who usually consumes a lot of skill points, Topaz is mostly a skill point positive character. Like, can you believe it? Like SP positive and hunt? I never thought these two traits can ever collide. And here we are looking at a character having both of those traits. Starting off with her traces, her basic attack deals minor fire damage to an enemy. Nothing special except it generates one skill point as usual. Her skill is her main ability. She causes a single enemy to enter a proof of depth state and receive increased damage from follow-up attacks. And with that, Numby deals fire damage to that target. Now this seems nothing much, but there's much more to add. First is a proof of death state. The state increases the damage taken by follow-up attacks by 50%, but it can only be applied to a single target at a time. And you use Topaz's skills only to switch targets. Now I said only because at the start of an ally's turn, if there's no enemy with proof of death, Topaz will randomly pick a target and apply proof of death, and that's the whole gimmick. To put it more simply, at the start of the battle, when an ally takes turn, whether it is Topaz or someone else, Topaz will automatically apply proof of death to a random target, and that's why you don't even need to use a skill to apply it, as it gets applied automatically. You only use your skills to change targets, and that's it. And yeah, also when she uses her skills, Numby also follow-up attacks the target. Like most of Topaz's abilities doesn't really hit the target, except for his basic attack. It's Numby that deals damage with his follow-up attack. Numby is like Jinyuan's Lightning Lord. He's a separate character in the action bar. I'll explain more in our talent section. Moving on to our ultimate, Numby enters the Windfall Bonanza state and increases damage multiplier and crit damage. Here, Numby's damage multiplier is increased by 150% and crit damage is increased by 25%. Not only that, if an enemy with proof of death receives attacks from an ally's basic attack, skills, or ultimate, Numby's action is advanced forward by 50%, and this whole buff ends after Numby uses 2 attacks. So to simplify this, her ultimate is kind of a buff for Numby. He gets his damage increased by a lot, and whenever an ally hits target with proof of death, Numby gets 50% push in the action bar. It's a really good ultimate. Just by looking at this, we can say Numby as a secondary character on the action bar is much more reliable and practical than Jinyuan's Lightning Lord. Because unlike Lightning Lord who relies on Jinyuan to attack so that it gets the damage increase and move forward, Numby doesn't care about Topaz. He gets his own unconditional damage increase and is much more faster, as it relies on allies using attacks on proof of death target. Next is a talent, which is Numby. Like we talked about him in the skill and the ultimate section, but let's talk about him a bit more. Topaz talent. At the start of the battle, Topaz summons Numby as an extra character with initial speed of 80. During Numby's turn, Numby deals follow-up attacks to a single enemy with proof of death, so you can control who Numby targets, unlike Lightning Lord who attacks randomly. Also, when an enemy with proof of death takes damage from follow-up attack, Numby's action is advanced forward by 50%. Now this doesn't proc for Numby's own attacks, but still, with all this, Numby is going to move very fast. Now don't confuse this 50% increase with the ultimate 50% increase. Both are different. A talent 50% increase procs when an ally uses a follow-up attack on the target, but when an ultimate's buff is active, it doesn't matter what attack it is. You just hit the target and Numby gets the 50% push. Now all this does sound pretty confusing, but it will get more simplified when we talk about build. Lastly, a technique. Numby just works like a treasure detector. He runs around the overworld and finds treasure chests and trotters. Cool thing is that trotters won't run away when you go near them. Also, if you enter battle this way, Topaz will get extra 60 energy after Numby's first attack. And if Topaz remains alive till the end of the battle, you get extra credits with of course a daily limit. Pretty neat if you ask me. Also, in similar universe, you don't get credits at the end of the battle. You get extra cosmic fragments with a chance of getting a random curio. Man, today looking like a reward bunker. A pretty good technique for some extra rewards. Alright, let's move on to our passive. Our first passive makes it so that when Topaz uses her basic attack to deal damage, it will be considered as follow-up attack, which is perfect for Topaz, which means since Numby himself cannot advance his action, Topaz can do that with her basic attack. Not only that, in Sim Universe, Topaz can utilize the Elation Path with her basic attack, which is crazy. Her second passive increases Topaz and Numby's damage dealt to the enemy target with fire weakness by 15%, which is good. Yeah, okay. Her third passive makes it so that after Numby uses an attack while in the Windfall Bonanza state from her ultimate, Topaz additionally regenerates 10 energy, which is really helpful considering her ultimate does have a 130 energy cost. Her bonus stats are great as well, giving her a bit of HP, a ton of fire damage boost, and crit rate, which is most of the time the hardest start to farm for DPS characters. Overall, I think she's a great character. Her versatility to be played in both hyper carry and a supportive position is insane. Now, I wouldn't say her damage is going to be higher than the likes of Imbabile Lene, but her damage surely will be high enough and consistent. She is pretty fast with 110 speed and doesn't need that much skill points to do her job. She's a well-designed character, and if you're looking for a good fire DPS, then I would highly recommend pulling for her if you have enough resources to do so. That being said, let's talk about how we can build her. Alright, let's start off with Relics. Now, Topaz has various playstyles, but the build is more or less the same for all of them. But there is a kind of a problem here, because like most of the damage based sets do not really synergize with her properly. As a DPS character, we usually go for elemental damage sets or the Musketeer set, but for Topaz, both doesn't work that well. For the fire set, the 2-piece is good, but the 4-piece is kinda shit, as all of her attacks are considered follow-up attacks. Similarly for the Musketeer set, once again, the 2-piece is good, but the 4-piece just doesn't work for her. Because if you know her first passive, Topaz's basic attack is also considered a follow-up attack. So here the best set for damage is going to be a 2-piece combo set of fire and Musketeer set. I was really hoping they would announce some kind of new Relic set for her, but I guess we have to wait a bit longer for that. But still, there's one more set that is pretty good on her, and that is going to be the Messenger set. This set is pretty insane for fast character like Topaz, and we all know that speed percentage stat scales better with characters with high base speed, and Topaz is just one of those characters. But if you don't have good pieces of this set, then just mix and match sets. At this point, these 3 sets are our preferred choice, so you can combo any 2 pieces from any of these sets. Just focus on the pieces with better substats. As for ornaments, we all know what it's gonna be. The moment we heard follow-up attacks, Inner Salsado becomes the obvious choice. It's a great offensive set, giving crit rate and 50% extra follow-up attack damage. Perfect for Topaz. Another set that can be good on her is going to be the Space Seeding Station set for some extra attack, which is pretty good, but I bet you would have much better pieces of Inner Salsado by now, as it is one of the better domains to farm. For main stats, it's extremely simple. Standard DPS stats. Go for crit rate or crit damage on the body. There's absolutely no way you would want anything else than speed on the boots. You want to go fire damage on the sphere and attack percentage on the rope. Now, considering her 130 energy cost, you can opt for energy regen rope, but that is only for a specific supportive playstyle. Other than that, attack is always the better choice. After that, let's talk light cones. Now, Topaz has some pretty unique requirements for light cones, so most of the standard light cones does not synergize with her that much. Starting off with the limited ones, unlike the other Hun light cones, her signature, Worrisome Blissful, not only increases her personal damage but also helps allies damage. First, it increases crit rate by 18% and increases follow-up attack damage by 30%, which is huge. And when other allies deal damage to the enemy, the crit damage is increased by 12%, which can stack up to 2 times, so in total of 24%, which is really good. But as for current game roster, pretty niche. Because like to proc it, you have to be a Hun character with follow-up attack mechanic. Topaz can easily trigger the passive because her basic attack is considered a follow-up attack, but other than that, it's not that versatile. As for Zealous Light Cone, the crit rate buff is good, but other than that, the rest of the passive is just unusable. The same can be said about Yanchin's Light Cone. The crit damage is good to have, but the rest of the passive can be activated by Topaz, because every single one of her attacks that deal damage to the enemies, may it be her or Numby, all are considered follow-up attacks. So most of these Light Cone doesn't work on her. It's pretty funny when you think about it. Like Topaz's Light Cone doesn't work on other Hun characters, and other Hun characters' Light Cones doesn't work on Topaz. It's amazing, dude. Other than her signature, the only 5-star light cone that can work on her is going to be the Herta Store one. It gives crit rate and attack, and both are great for her, and it's free, so great. As for 4 stars, there's only 3 options that I would recommend. There is Swordplay, River Flows in the Spring, and only Silent Remains. All 3 are decent, with Swordplay being the best, as Topaz wants to attack the target that is marked with Proof of Death. The other 2 are okay on her, giving her speed and attack. As I said earlier, because of a unique kit, there aren't many light cones that can work with her, but still a good thing that the free Herta Store light cone is actually great for her, and most of you guys are probably going to be using that. After light cones, let's talk about some team synergies. Which characters can pair up with her? I already said that Topaz has multiple playstyles. You can use her as a solo DPS, or you can make her kind of a sub DPS, or you can use her as a straight up support. The last one is kinda meh, but the other two playstyles are pretty great. The standard DPS playstyle is probably her most consistent playstyle when it comes to damage numbers, because like despite having supportive capabilities, her personal damage is pretty nice. You can just pair her up with your normal buffers like Bronya, Tingyun or Asta, and debuffers like your Silver Wolf or Pella. Nothing really changes in those spots, but like for defensive spots, March 7th is a great choice as she has a follow-up attack that will help Numby move faster, but she's not that good of a solo sustain, so you might need another abundance character to pair up with her, or you can just skip March and just use a character like Luocha, Bailu or Fushwen who can solo sustain, so you can use the other two spots for your Harmony and Nihility characters. It's the normal playstyle that we always use with most of the damage dealers like Seela or Blade. The other one is the 2 DPS playstyle, where you pair Topaz with a character with frequent follow-up attacks like Clara or Himeko. I wouldn't recommend Jingliu here, as his only follow-up attack is his Lightning Lord, who is not someone I would say consistent. But for a character like Clara, you can pair her with March and get a ton of follow-up attacks from her. And since this is multi-target, it will most likely hit the enemy with proof of death, and your Numby will move really fast and have a lot of turns. Himeko can do the same, but well, you all know Himeko. The last playstyle is the pure support playstyle, where you only use her to increase your other character's follow-up attack damage. For a character like Jingliu, since most of his damage comes from his Lightning Lord, pairing him with Topaz can be a great option. And the most important part, since Topaz is pretty skill point positive, Jingliu will have no problem spamming his skill every turn. But still, a lot of things can get south, like Jingliu's Lightning Lord might not even target the enemy with proof of death, as it targets randomly. So you can see why I said the other playstyles are better. Anyways, you guys can probably come up with ton more combinations than what I just mentioned, but these are just the characters that I think would work well with her. Now before I move on to the Eidolons, let's talk about who is better, Seela or Topaz, as both of them are getting a banner at the same time in the second half, and most of you guys won't have enough pulls for both. Of course, if you are playing from the start of the patch and have Seela, then you don't need this segment, but for someone who don't have Seela, what then? So if I had to say, and this is completely my personal opinion, I would say that both have their own ups and downs, where they're better than the other. If you just count the damage numbers, I would say Seela is still a bit better. Her multipliers are already pretty high, and with her extra turns and stuff, I would say she's still better in terms of pure damage. Topaz on the other hand is much more of a versatile character. It doesn't mean her damage sucks, no sir, her damage is great, but if you take the same suppose with both, Seela can dish out more damage than Topaz. That said, Topaz is much easier to play and build a team around. She doesn't need that much skill point. She has unconditional buffs that gets applied automatically and help her deal more damage. Her ultimate is a pretty massive buff to all her attacks, and she allows other DPS characters to take benefit of her kit. Usually we don't pair up 2 DPSs together because they might not have enough skill points, especially hunt characters, but Topaz is the first one to allow that. In terms of damage as well, yeah, Seela's multiplier are a bit higher, but we all know that new characters always deal more damage than the older ones. So I think both characters are pretty much on the same level. As for who to pull, I'd say wait a few days before pulling. See what the other content creators are saying, because like when you think about it, she's still incomplete. She would really appreciate a proper relic set that can work well with her unique kit, but we don't have that yet and probably will get in the future. That's why I say have a bit of patience and wait a few days, check the character out and then take the decision whether to pull her or not. Alright, finally her Eidolons, the part that is literally worthless to me, but some of you might want to hyper invest in your Topaz. So let's see what she has. Her E1 makes it so that when enemies inflicted with proof of death receive follow-up attacks from an ally, they will enter this new state called the Debtor state, and when you use a follow-up attack on this enemy, the crit damage of the attack will be increased by 25%, stacking up to 2 times. And when proof of death is removed, which is when you shift it to another target, Debtor is also removed. So it's like another proof of death mechanic. The normal one increases follow-up attack damage received by 50%, and this new one increase the crit damage of the follow-up attack up to 50%, which is pretty massive. Her E2 regenerates 5 energy for Topaz after Numby takes action and launches an attack, which is okay I guess. Extra energy is always nice. Her E3 and E5 are level ups for her traces. Her E4 advances Topaz's action forward by 20% after Numby's turns begin, which is really nice for her, making her cycle like crazy fast. Topaz pushes Numby and then Numby pushes Topaz, a really good combination. Lastly, her E6 makes it so that Numby's attack count while in the Windfall Bonanza state from Topaz's ultimate is increased by 1. Initially, Numby could only do 2 attacks, after that the buffs runs out, but with this, he will be able to do 3 attacks, and by that time Topaz will probably get her ultimate back, resulting in a pretty much 100% uptime on her buffs. Not only that, the fire rest spend of those 3 attacks is increased by 10%, which is insane. The buff already gave a lot of damage boost, but now it penetrates defense. Dude, that pig is gonna slap hard. Now I can say that this is obviously her E6. Defense spend is such a rare trait, it increases damage significantly. So of course you can expect this kind of crazy things in her 6th Eidolon. Overall, I say her Eidolons are decently good. Her Evo especially seems to be a good one if you want to go for Eidolons on her. Except that, I think her E6 is the other one that is pretty good. And if you're planning to go that far, then you're probably a whale and you don't really care about this segment anyways. So that's that. And there you have it. Those were my thoughts on the hot-ass debt collector, Topaz, and her piggy bank Numby. She has a pretty unique kit, which might seem underwhelming, but shows great potential. As I said earlier in the video, she is still incomplete without her proper relic set. So I guess we can't really comprehend her proper value as a character yet. But with the assets we currently have in the game, she's a well-designed character that you wouldn't regret pulling. So thank you very much for watching. If you found this video helpful, drop a like and subscribe for more Star Rail and Genshin content from yours truly. This video sure took a lot of time to make, but it's finally here. The next one is going to be on Gwen, the last character coming in 1.4, so do look forward to that. And of course, after my last video, have you made a decision? Who are you choosing? Jingliu or Topaz? Let me know in the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.